So one of the concerns this past May, we had a bunch of initiatives, and sometimes when you put too many ideas in one idea, all you need is one group to come out and attack it, and then that kind of sets the tone for the whole thing. So how many different ideas do you propose, or are there going to be different initiatives, or like 10 initiatives in one ballot?
California has a single issue rule for initiatives. You can only put one idea per initiative. That doesn't apply to the outcomes of a constitutional convention. The constitutional convention can come up with 50 reforms and put them all on one ballot. It would be, here's the new constitution, which we came up with, vote for this, or vote for the old constitution, the one that we know that doesn't work. This might not work either, but it's worth taking the risk. We did a lot of work. A lot of very smart people came through the building and explained to us what the problems were, what the best solutions were, and this is what we came up with. So that the single issue rule doesn't apply. Within those 50 revisions, there will be something for everyone to hate. Well, that's without a doubt. But it will be very difficult for interest groups to take shots at it, because it's a product of the people. The people of California came up with these revisions. If you want to take shots and empty your war chest attacking the work of the people, go for it. Again, that's another way it differs from the initiative process. The initiative process is, by and large, they're crafted behind closed doors and smoke-filled rooms in California Forward's case, by a lot of very smart people. But if you look what happened in May, the same thing happened. We had a series of initiatives that were consensus initiatives, Republicans and Democrats agreeing on the types of crisis reforms we needed in the middle of our budget malaise. The voters turned against them unanimously because it wasn't a Sacramento sort of ivory tower type solution. It would be very difficult we expect them, some opposition, to take shots at the product of the convention, but it's a very difficult political argument to make. We don't like the reforms that the people have proposed. That's how we hope it will come.
Dennis, talking about the initiatives, why do you think the initiative process would be better?
Well, so there's a lot of things that people have said that I definitely agree with. And one of the big ones is, what we're proposing are policies, and what we've just been talking about is a process. And we've been through a process. I mean, we've been talking to people, 20,000 people, face-to-face, in meetings like this, in meetings with one or two people. None of this is online. This is all face-to-face over the last 2 years. And that's an undercount. None of the proposals that we're putting forward are things that we came up with ourselves. It's all stuff that has been thought through and vetted by a lot of other people. We're multi-partisan, so it is a real cross-section of California who has weighed in on our proposals. So, there's a couple of things that I think are really important to say. One is timing is everything. There was a constitutional revision in the 90s that was enacted when there was a crisis, and it was a 3-year process, and at the end of the process, the crisis was over, and the public will to enact those revisions disappeared. And I don't know when, things will change for California. It might be in a couple of years, it might be in 4 years. Obviously, the sooner the better, but the reality is there's a window of opportunity where the public is interested and willing to make big changes. And California has always had a very robust economy, and we still do. And at some point in time in the near future, we'll be, the state coffers will be full again, and folks are not going to be as interested as they are now in making big reforms. So the way that I see it, and I think the way that California Forward sees it, is it's not an either or, right? We're proposing some changes that we think will make a big difference, and those changes are things that are going to be on the ballot in a year. My guess is things aren't going to turn around in the state, unfortunately, which probably means that people are still going to be really interested in seeing some reforms. So, I think just a question that I have personally when I think about a constitutional convention is, what is the state going to look like in 2 years or in 3 years? Number one. And number two, if you have a package of a number of different reforms, even if it's on one vote, I'm not sure how people are going to take it if they're not ready for a big change. So there's a lot of questions I think that people have. Organizationally, we don't see ourselves as oppositional to the Constitutional Convention at all. It's a separate process, and it may very well be a great one, or it may be a Hail Mary pass. But if you're in a game and you can throw your Hail Mary pass and you can run another play at the same time, then why don't you do both? So there's no moderator. So
I want to say ditto to that. We're on the same team. This is the reform team you're looking at up here, and the status quo team is somewhere else. We all agree on the changes that are needed and the types of reforms that are needed, largely, not on a lot of the specifics and the details, just to say we have process differences, and we work with California Forward every day on making sure we're not stepping on each other's toes, and the two processes are complementary. We both go to the ballot in November of next year. California Forward, presumably with their first slate of reforms, and us with our Prop 1A and Prop 1B. And I would envisage, and I don't know, if California Forward's right and the initiative process is the way forward, and they lead with 4 or 5 initiatives next November, and they all pass overwhelmingly, and the voters have shown an appetite for change, and that the initiative process is the way they want to do it, I would see that we would seed the field and go, good on you guys, you were right, we were wrong. But I don't want to put all the eggs in that basket. If California Forward lead with their best 3, 4, 5 initiatives and lose, then the Constitutional Convention is our last best hope. So both initiative processes, both reform processes need to go forward hand in hand.
I would just add to that, the Courage Campaign agrees with both of these guys that we do need a constitutional convention. We also need a triage for the state of California, right? We need to get the right things on the ballot in 2010 to deal with the 2/3 rule. That needs to go. We need to look at ways of putting initiative reform on that ballot. We need to try to put as many different things on that ballot as we can, and try again in 2012 if necessary. But the Constitutional Convention, one of the reasons we find it so valuable is, as Matt said, it's a way for people of California to see a product of the people. And it's worth keeping in mind that that's not the only set of constitutional reforms we're going to see. There are special interests in this state that are not holding public discussions like this, that are not holding public forums. They're just going to write their own initiatives and put it on the ballot and assume that that's how things are going to change. Constitutional change in California will happen. Anytime you have an economic crisis this severe, a political crisis this severe, the current system cannot continue and it will not continue. And we believe that the best way to produce positive change that the people of California can actually participate in making and approving, is through a constitutional convention process. That's not the only way. Again, if there are very good initiatives on the ballot next year, we ought to support them.